Hey everyone, welcome to Sunday morning hangover. I messed that up. This is Jason.
And this is Kai, and we have another great discussion for you today. We actually have two movies today. Um, Jason and I, our friendship started just based on going to the gym when we were in college. So these two movies are kind of near and dear to both of us. We're talking about Pumping Iron from 1977 and Generation Iron from 2013.
Yeah, when I started Generation Iron last night, I was like, I remember we found it at this
Yes,
like
local
disgusting
theater,
local theater. We're the
only
only
ones
ones in
in
there,
there.
right? We went to go buy our
Only
ticket,
ones.
and the guy's like, "What? Like we have that one?"
Like, let me figure out what screen it's on. Like,
Yeah,
you guys are the
and we
only ones
watched it
here.
like at night too. It was like
Hmm.
super late at night. It was like 11 o'clock. I don't know, but
Way
yeah.
past my
So
bedtime now.
way past the bedtime and everything. But yeah, that's like I'm trying not to cough into the mic. But I told Patty it's like my girlfriend and stuff. It's like before she met me, it's like that's pretty much like what like I went to the gym all the time and everything. I was like there daily talking about the diet and stuff, and that's how Kai
Hmm.
and I kind of started talking to each other and stuff. He would show up in my apartment in college and just kind of sit around and like, normal
We would
people
watch
are like,
YouTube
"What do you
videos.
do?" Yeah. So yeah, and then we watched. I don't know. Did you ever watch Pumping Iron before we watched Generation Iron? That back then, it was Generation Iron, the
um,
first one.
no, I think you. When did I watch Pumping Iron? I think when we lived together. I think when
Okay.
we lived together, we watched Pumping Iron at some
Okay.
point before we watched Generation Iron.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's how it went down.
So it's a I don't know. What are your initial thoughts of like the like the progression of these two films?
Yeah.
You I know you can kind of see them as connected, but like they're
Hmm.
two totally separate films
Yeah.
basically, or like documentaries.
The At least for me, I really enjoyed Pumping Iron more so than Generation Iron. Like, there was something if watching Pumping Iron, it felt like a story. It felt like you're watching the story of Arnold finishing his career, and then Lou Ferrigno coming into, I guess you can say, prominence, because this is before he was the Hulk on TV. I think
Yeah, he was what, 23 years old during the filming?
23, 24, yeah.
Yeah.
And Generation Iron didn't have that same like story like feeling. Like, I know Generation Iron, like during that time frame when we watched it, that was like peak. You and I going to the gym, talking about the gym all the time. And when we watched it, it was cool. I enjoyed the film. But then now watching these back to back, you can see how different these two films are.
Yeah, what I kind of got out of it after finishing watching, or even in the middle of watching Generation Iron, was like, I wrote down, it's like, it seemed like the rivalry of Arnold and Lou
Yeah.
was innately there.
Hmm.
And I think Arnold's kind of like way of kind of being a douchebag. Like I wrote
That was
down
the
like
funniest thing.
Arnold
I
is a douchebag and
No,
everything.
I put Arnold. I put Arnold as an OG villain. He's just diabolical.
Yeah, he just wants to have fun with everybody, but then
Yeah.
that's how he's like his evil way of like figuring out something to do and everything.
When he's at dinner with Lou, and oh, he's
Yeah,
so
like
big. Oh no.
and Lou is just like this quiet giant and everything, and like
Goofy kid. Yeah.
yeah, he is much bigger than Arnold, no matter what, in terms of
Hmm.
like size, in general size.
Yeah.
But
But he still had
in
Arnold on that
Generation
pedestal.
Iron, yeah, and so yeah, no matter what, Arnold is on a pedestal. But in Generation Iron, I think with Kai Green's kind of like rivalry with Phil Heath, it almost was like contrived. It seemed like because it
Yeah,
more
like it
so
felt
it's like all right,
fake.
Phil Heath just kind of won, and then
Hmm.
they chose some next person that like, oh, we have
Yeah.
to make this kind of like boxing style like back and forth
Rivalry.
where they're
Yeah.
showing their kind of like build up to the competition, and then they have the outliers of like, they're not going to do anything on the stage compared to these two individuals,
Yeah.
but you have to have other stories. And so that's like the other people are there, but it felt like it was contrived, like they were looking for a
Yeah.
rivalry where like maybe it wasn't there in the first place, or it was, but no one really kind of,
Nobody really cared. Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
even
that's sort of
the
like my feeling.
yeah, even the smaller cast in when you're comparing the smaller cast in Generation Iron and Pumping Iron, like Franco Colombo and Pumping Iron, like his story was cool. Like them actually showing him winning and then having to compete with Arnold at the end, and then him and Arnold working out together. That was fun to watch. But the side stories in Generation Iron were kind of just like, all right, cool. This guy's just getting out of prison. Great for him. He's trying to get back into bodybuilding. That was a decent enough side story. The guy and grandma, that story of them was strange.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah, I didn't
immediately
like the side
when they
stories.
came on the screen. I told Patty, I was like, these people have some weird relationships.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we always share a hotel room. Like, oh, saving money, I guess.
Yeah, the dude coming out of jail and stuff like Victor Martinez, like you felt for him. I think that was like the
Yeah.
only thing. Like you have two individuals that I think, for my stance, like you enjoyed watching Kai Green because he's like he's he's different from all of them, and it's not
Hmm.
necessarily because he wants to be different. It's because he is different and stuff. And he's like, I like to paint. I like to do this like
Yeah.
performance art out
In the subway,
in
just
the
like half
subways and
naked,
stuff.
just posing.
Yeah. So and then he's like he lives a very modest lifestyle, and then
Mhm.
that's like a stark contrast with Phil Heath. But then you also feel for Victor Martinez, where it's like it is inevitable where it's like they always show him they show shots of him looking at his old self,
Yeah.
and I was like, I told Patty, I was like, I don't know why he thought, I don't know if it was like just because of the movie and stuff, but like looking at his old self and looking at how he was at that moment, it's like I would also assume like I have to break down and just wait for next year and stuff, and
Yeah.
like because like you're coming out of 7 months in jail and stuff, and you're
Yeah.
like you're not gonna be at the Olympic level. I don't know. Like basically, this is the Olympics for
Hmm.
bodybuilding. And I
He's
don't know.
very
I was
delusional. Very
I don't
delusional.
know. I feel like he kind of knew. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, he needs to do something no matter what. And stepping on that grand stage, is that the best thing to do for your like career? I don't know. Maybe do
It,
smaller ones. Or
yeah,
other
exactly.
competitions are happening
Yeah.
around this time too. So
Or at least just start hitting the gym like you used to. Like, don't just jump back into competitions. Take your time.
that's what I was thinking when he was in
Yeah.
Vegas for the show. I was like, that guy should be in the gym. Like
Yeah.
he should be home
Like, don't
and
worry about
like
what they're
living in a
doing.
dungeon, like they said. Like the bodybuilders live in a dungeon.
Just the hoodie on, headphones, and
Yeah.
hitting the weights. That's all.
But I agree with you. The pumping iron was more enjoyable and stuff,
Yeah.
and the other characters, Franco Colombo, and even that I wrote down Mike Katz, the guy that I think he ends up winning.
Yo, my
Uh,
cats scared the hell out of
yeah, but my because like when he described like winning,
me.
but
Hmm.
it was not him winning. It was just more so that like you felt it, where it's like that is really what goes on in their head, where it just
Yeah.
it feels great, and you can kind of hear it in his voice where he's trying to be nice, and you can tell it's genuine, but he's also like,
Pissed.
man, I wanted to be that. Like
Hmm.
that was supposed to be me in my dream, but it's this guy. And it was very poignant to like have that little moment where like you hear the announcers on the outside calling the other dude that wins, and he's like, oh, that's great and everything, and it's like
Yeah.
you feel sad.
But how it just tripped me out that like I couldn't imagine him as a teacher. Like you
All
walk into
right.
class and you're just like, holy crap, you're my teacher? Like maybe a football coach, yeah, but like you're teaching English, bro? Like,
I don't
that
know, but like Ronnie Conway was a police officer.
that is still the most hilarious thing in the freaking world. Well, there was one thing. So, and I think we used to talk about it all the time, but watching these two over again and seeing the bodybuilders back in the 70s, like seeing these guys, like they were bigger than, how can I explain this? They seem like figures. Like they legitimately all look like statues, like their size. But it seemed attainable to a certain extent. Like it's going to take a lot of
Mm.
work to get to that point, but it seemed attainable. But looking at the guys in Generation Iron, those bodies don't seem attainable. Those seem like lab created people.
Yeah, and then one of them is literally created in a lab, like he
Oh yeah,
goes and gets his blood test and all this stuff.
yeah,
And but
and still
yeah,
lost.
I like the differences because you saw immediately the moment you start up Generation Iron, you immediately see that there was this like weird switch
Hmm.
where, and Phil Heath kind of has like a quote in the middle of it where he says like people wanted these circus type builds.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but like I think I it's my thought of this comes from like a video I watched too, I think. But there's another bodybuilder, Dorian Yates, and he
Oh
comes
yeah.
up in the thing, but he was one of the initial people that kind of created that new generation of bodybuilders that were like, how much size can I put on this
My
frame
frame. Yeah.
and still be proportional? And I think that was like the one of the main things. And even Patty, little by little during watching the two movies, she was like, okay, that one does look more proportional than this other person.
Hmm.
And so she kind of got to get a sense of like, all right, how do they judge this? And because
Yeah.
like when you look at them, you're like, what's the difference? Like they all
Hmm.
look kind of vascular and veiny and stuff. I feel like you know more of a difference in the body styles from the 70s looking
Yeah.
people because
Yeah.
like they come in different heights, but you can tell that they place muscle different places to like kind of build up their own kind of like structure.
Basically, what
And
Arnold was saying was like you're building a statue, so you put a little bit of clay over here, a little bit of clay over here. Like, oh, I just want a little bit more shape, so I got to work on this.
and we kind of knew that, and it wasn't, we didn't take it to the extent of them and like
Yeah.
going into competitions, but we kind of knew if we wanted something a little bit more pronounced, you went to the gym and you did that a little bit more
Hmm.
and stuff, and you put more, you did
Put
more
more weight
weights and
on
stuff.
it. Hmm.
So I Patty was like, I think Arnold's description of like chiseling yourself out of
Yeah.
granite or clay is a good description and a good, she understood Arnold's perspective of like why he bodybuild and stuff. And
Yeah.
then she was like, I don't get like Phil Heath's perspective where it's like it almost just turned into where it's like I want to be that circus animal that's in front of everybody. And it's like I guess that's where the sport went. And you see now the sport's kind of going a
Back
different way,
to.
back
Hmm.
to the classic physique and everything. But
But I
I
think that,
think each one has their own kind of like meanings.
yeah, but I think you saying what you just said really solidifies why I liked Pumping Iron more so than Generation Iron. Like as you're watching Pumping Iron, you kind of get a feel for every character within that film. Like, and then you have a connection with each one of them, possibly. Generation Iron, it didn't seem like you really got that. Like, yeah, they touched on everybody. They went back and interviewed them, but you just don't have that same connection. I don't know if it was the filming style because the cinematography in Generation Iron just seemed like they kind of had a camera and they were like, "Oh, here's so and so, let's get him for a second, and here's so and so over
Yeah, it was
here."
like
But
almost like a YouTube video too, and it was like
yeah,
sometimes it was hard to watch.
but Pumping Iron felt like a movie. Like, okay, we
Mhm.
have the camera set up. Boom, here's Arnold. We got him for these shots. Okay, now we're in the gym, and they just made them feel like superheroes. Like it felt like you were watching a for real movie, but Generation Iron, like you said, was like a YouTube vlog. Hey, we got all these
Yeah,
guys together for a couple days. Let's get some shots.
yeah, I get that. Where it's like a lot of times you can care less about these individuals,
Hmm.
and because they're like mean to be mean too, where it's like it's not like, I don't know, it's just like the different perspective of like, and then you don't have like, I loved from like the 70s era Serge Nubret,
Yeah, that was
where
my
and
guy
it's like
eating
I
horse meat.
remember, yeah, horse meat. I think he ate like one meal a day and everything,
Yeah,
and that's all he ate. And then like he, but so you had those like crazy like stories of these individuals, and then you have Serge Nubret show up at this competition,
late.
and no one knows who the hell he is.
Hmm.
And he's and as Lou Ferrigno and Arnold are like trying to pump themselves up, but then also messing around with each other. I was like, Patty, Serge is like right there on the floor, like just doing
Chilling.
like
Yeah.
his own thing.
He was unfazed, man.
And he looked great, and he
He
looked
did.
amazing and stuff. And so it's like it and those little things where like you have some like random like out of nowhere person where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, like this guy comes out of nowhere and it's just like he was probably winning stuff in France,
Hmm.
but then news doesn't travel as fast, I guess. Like
It's
I
not
guess
like
that's
social
like the
media. Yeah.
downside. Yeah, that's the downside of today's world where it's like you know every little nook and cranny of like
Yeah.
the bodybuilding world if you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Back then, you didn't know until these dudes showed up.
Like, yo, who's this big old dude?
Yeah. I know. I think in terms of like I will ask you like which one motivated you more to go back to the gym and hit the weights. For me it was pumping iron,
Hmm.
and because of just how it was done, and yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, like they're like comic book characters just kind
Hmm.
of like living life in front of you, and they're all children. Patty was like,
Oh,
Arnold's
for
just like a
sure.
giant child.
Yes. That dude said the gym was like sex is
Yeah.
better than coming and just kept saying, I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? And then
But
just
then
hits a joint at the very end of it.
but Patty when he kept saying that, and he was like, it's
Yeah.
almost like coming.
It's
It's
better than
it's this,
coming.
and
It's like, bro, what?
she was like, that's odd to think about, but she's like,
Mhm.
I get it. I get how he can be driven by that.
Yeah.
And 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 it was like more so like she understood, okay, then that's a drive that's almost built into us.
Hmm.
But he decided to take it to another level where it's like
Yeah.
anytime he's in the gym, he has this satisfaction
You're
that's similar
chasing
to
that.
the pinnacle satisfaction of what normal human beings kind of see. And but he was like, I that's me and everything. That's
Yeah.
24/7. And so but I think that's what makes him was what made him different back then, where it's like that's what made him a champion.
But I think that reminds me. So I haven't finished it yet, but I was listening to a Tom Brady interview. I think it's a podcast he was on, and he talks about motivation. And you always hear about these exceptional athletes and what motivates them. And like Michael Jordan remembers everything, every note of doubt or any bad thing someone ever said to him, and he used that as motivation on the court to win. Kobe Bryant did something similar. Steph Curry uses social media and he takes the negative things that are posted and uses that as motivation.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't know because Tom Brady seems like an elusive guy, but I guess now that he's retired, he's doing more interviews. So the one I was listening to, he was talking about that, like utilizing negative, negative things that were said about him, even from childhood, as motivation to win when he's on the field. And that's what Arnold, the better than coming quote reminded me of like, I want to be the greatest, so I need whatever it takes to motivate me to get to that point. And that was one motivating factor, it seemed like.
Yeah, you kind of heard it from also that Mike Katz guy, where it's
Yeah.
like he was the guy with the bottle cap, kind of
Hmm.
glasses and stuff, so he's made fun of
His sad
and
little
all
life,
that.
man.
Yeah, and so but you flip it to the extreme with the Generation Iron people, where Kai Green comes from a hard life and everything. He's the one that kind of I think the reason why he's very personable and stuff because it seemed like
He
a
was
very
genuine.
healthy outlet for what
Yeah.
he kind of existed in and stuff. And he loves to paint. He loves to do all this like this artistic things. And he seemed the most healthy
Hmm.
out of the ones that like because you almost take it to the extreme where like they were like if they were made fun of as kids they were like, all right, well, I'm gonna do as much as I can to be as big as possible. And so you kind of take it as like I'm gonna take those negatives, but I'm gonna like berate myself
Yeah.
to fix those negatives. And I kind of was like when I was watching the Generation Iron, it was more because they kept talking about like how do you critique these individuals.
Hmm.
And so the way you critique is that you look at the negatives of their body and then you rank those negatives. And it's like I kind of feel like that's sort of what bred that kind of like body dysmorphia in these
Hmm.
individuals because it's like now they have to look into the mirror and tell themselves this doesn't look good,
Yeah.
so I need to fix it. Where Arnold, maybe they did say that, but it wasn't a perspective of like, I want to make this better and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it looks great. I want to make it more symmetrical. I want to make it more this and that.
There was more of an art. It felt like more of an art form to it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want the most symmetrical and sizable body versus let me look at all the negatives of myself in order to find motivation to keep going to the gym to be bigger. Like it was a weird shift, like you were saying. But on the side of that, it's crazy that Kai Green is now in movies and TV shows,
Right? I
like
looked him.
all over the place.
I looked him up and I was like, I forget he was in Stranger Things.
Yes, in like the first or second season.
Yeah. So you see that where like he almost, sadly you have that Dennis Wolf guy that like wants to be an actor and goes through like a very awkward kind of like
Oh, dude,
interview and stuff, but like
that was
I,
super sad. I was like, why are
yeah, that
you
was
doing
very
this to
awkward and stuff, and I
yourself?
was like, man. But then you see like how if you're almost kind of just yourself, and even
Yeah.
though that, not saying that Dennis Wolf wasn't his self and everything, but it was like more so that was, again, it seemed too contrived.
Mhm.
And where Kai Green seems like a person, like I read that he like made his own graphic novel and everything of his
Shit.
like the adventures or chronicles of Kai Green, or Kai, like he made himself into a comic book.
That's
And it
cool.
was like, which is like, it's like, hey man, you own yourself,
Hmm.
and I know how to draw, so I'm gonna draw myself
You
and
got to
everything.
capitalize on it. Yeah.
And I'm gonna make these stories that I want and stuff. And immediately I wanted to like, I wanted to find one of his paintings and stuff. Like, how do you find one of these? Does he even sell them? I don't know. I don't know. So I was going down a rabbit hole of the internet and stuff. But I think no matter what, sadly, Generation Iron, the only thing you kind of take away from it is that these dudes are gigantic,
Hmm.
and they did touch on steroids, which is something that was interesting. And it almost was like something that like it was, everyone's thinking about it, and they're like, let's just put it out there and
Yeah.
stuff, and whoever wanted to talk about it. And I think that grandma actually had like the best perspective of it. It's like, let's do this, but do it healthy and do it
Hmm.
like we're doing a competition. Like we're athletes. I was gonna put air quotes, but they're
Yeah.
athletes.
They're athletes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're athletes, but they need to do a job, and that doesn't, that shouldn't be said to like us doing steroids to like get that big. It's like, we're not doing that for a job. It's like, why would
Yeah.
you do that in your own personal life as a hobby and stuff? Like that seems kind of like counterintuitive and stuff. And so it was good to kind of get those perspectives where it's like we kind of have to do this job, but they almost kind of justified it like the audience wants to see this, so we have to do this. And
They
so
want
it's
me to
like,
be huge.
yeah, it's like, all right, we
There's no
really
way
didn't ask
around
for
it.
it.
We wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, I know, right? But it is kind of moving back to kind of
Yeah.
like a pumping iron type of
More
deal
realistic
nowadays.
bodies. The one
Yeah.
thing, I guess, as we've been talking, we've kind of touched on it without like saying it outright, but it seemed like the bodybuilders within pumping iron, they had a mystique to them. But the bodybuilders in Generation Iron, there's really no mystique. It was just like, oh, these are just regular guys that have been lifting weights for years and years and years and want to be as big as possible.
I think so, and it's like Patty got upset where they kept like bringing up like, oh, you all of you people believe we're just meatheads, and Patty was like,
Mhm.
who's saying that? They're the
Yeah,
ones saying it. And
that's an
so
internal monologue.
yeah, and it's like yeah, and I think you had more personality from the individuals
Hmm.
from Pumping Iron, and yeah, these Generation Iron people just kind of exist in
Yeah,
this world
in the
of
world.
bodybuilding and stuff, and you wouldn't know the difference between the guy from Japan to the guy that is just coming out of the immigration jail
Yeah.
for some like hard times and stuff. And it's like you, there's subtle differences, but I think you have more. I don't know. It's just, is it the world that back then we really didn't know too much about these guys?
that's what I was trying to figure out, but I couldn't figure it out. Like as I was watching Pumping, because I watched Generation Iron first, and then I watched Pumping Iron.
Mm.
And as I was watching Pumping Iron, I was like, man, these guys are like, there's something about them that's different than the Generation Iron guys, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But I think we've been warped. It could be the way it's shot, but it could also be the view of everything so accessible to us now. So all of the every bodybuilder that's in Generation Iron probably has a social media page and always post about themselves. Whereas Pumping Iron, the only thing we knew was that film. We didn't know what they were doing outside of that, and we got little glimpses in the film.
Or the magazines, and so you
Oh yeah,
saw like the
yeah, yeah,
differences in the magazines and stuff, where like the print media was like how you saw these
yeah.
guys from inside their gym, their
You're like,
dungeon and stuff.
whoa.
Yeah. So it did create that kind of comic book style where it's
Yeah,
like these dudes are superheroes from the
yeah.
comics, and they're like out in real life and stuff. And um yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is the way it's shot. Maybe it's just like how much information that I'm assuming all the dudes that are sadly still alive from Pumping Iron um have social media accounts, but like
Oh,
maybe they're
now,
not
yeah,
the
for
ones that
sure.
do it.
Yeah, and they're not posting workout videos anymore
Yeah, they're just like
unless
I'm
they're
sitting
old
at home,
videos.
I'm doing nothing.
Uh-huh. Or it's Arnold and it's like his 35th movie.
Yeah. So, all right, there was one thing that I noticed. There was one common denominator from the two films, that
Hmm.
the main thing about these competitions was the aspect of posing,
Oh yeah,
and you saw how posing can make you good,
yeah,
great, or a champion, or just nothing at all too. Where it's like that the guy with grandma
yeah,
showed that like any little changes in your posing can be a stark change from like how you are.
yeah.
Where in the Pumping Iron movie, you saw that they were like very
Mm,
big on like, all
ballet
right, like
class.
ballet classes, like, and they were like trying to help each other like
Hmm.
pose too, where it's like, all right, like they understand that this posing stuff is what kind of like really shows them off.
Yeah.
But it was funny to see that there was no emphasis on diet in the Pumping Iron, where
Oh yeah,
it's like, all right, like I just eat food.
yeah. What like? Because Lou was eating with his dad,
He didn't have
but
a
I don't
big
remember
old
what they
bowl
were
of
actually eating.
lettuce. He
Yeah.
was just eating
Oh,
like
that's
a
what it
giant
was. It was
bowl of
like cabbage or
lettuce.
something. Yeah, lettuce or cabbage.
Yeah, but
But yeah, they didn't focus on it. It was just like, hey, I'm in the gym all the time, and they weren't touching on their diet.
where Generation Iron,
They
you
were
saw them,
focused.
they're
Yeah,
eating, and they did say deliberately like we have to eat at certain times.
yeah.
But I think it's like, I don't know, like as you begin to kind of like put more science into a sport, that you're like, all right, now I have to like. But for them to get that big, I think there's no way they can do that without
They were focused on their
having
diet.
large amounts of diet of
Hmm.
food, or and improper food too. You're like, you're not just like, well, he talked about it. It's like you're not just eating whatever you want.
Yeah.
You're supposed to
Well,
eat
even yeah,
specific things.
the Surge New Break thing, like eating horse meat and everything. Like he was focused on his diet. They just didn't talk about it in the film.
Yeah, he like I think it was like horse meat and like beans and stuff, and
Yeah, just
like
large amounts of it. It's like
yeah.
what?
But it wasn't such an emphasis in their world. I think. I
Yeah.
think it was just there, like, hey, we all have to eat and everything. But
Mm-hmm.
with them in Generation Iron, it was like very regimented. Like I have to eat at this specific time. Like their alarm goes off. Grandma's telling them to eat or something, and eating fish, rice, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I found that funny, where it's like there was like this like clear distinction that the Generation Iron people, like, you were gonna learn a little bit more about their diets, and
Mm-hmm.
you were like seeing as to like how they kind of manage their food as they get closer to the competition. So it was pretty interesting. But how how do you rate these things? I told Kai when I first started, when we got on this call before this, I didn't rate these things, because I'm like, how do you rate a documentary? But
Yeah.
I can kind of get a general sense of what I would kind of think of right now, just
Yeah.
talking about them too.
So for me, it's a documentary, but I took it. All right, anytime I watch a documentary, it's based on how it made me feel. as I was watching it. Like, okay, do I enjoy this as a whole? Do I not enjoy it? What points do I dislike? And basically what we've been discussing this whole time. So for Generation Iron, I gave it a 2. To check my notes. Yeah, gave Generation Iron a 2, but I gave Pumping Iron a 3. And I probably honestly could give Pumping Iron a higher star rating than that, but it was, you felt more for the characters, or you felt more connected with the characters in Pumping Iron. It was shot better. It was shot more like a film more than a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
For Generation Iron, like we said, it just didn't have that same gripping feel to it. You're kind of just watching some bodybuilders as they fabricate a rivalry and then go on stage and pose for a little bit. So I gave that a 2.
Yeah, I would agree. A 3 for Pumping Iron, or even like a 3.5 for Pumping
Mm-hmm.
Iron, and a 2 for Generation Iron, and it's like, if you just want to like clearly kind of differentiate them as like this is a bodybuilding film, if you're looking at a bodybuilding film, like Pumping Iron is like up there,
The
like as
pinnacle,
probably
yeah.
the best one. There's also like Bigger, Stronger, Faster, I think, where it's like these like brothers that decide to go into bodybuilding and stuff, and like they're in terms of genetics. That's a pretty good one. That's another documentary style. But it just seemed like, yeah, Generation Iron was more of like you can tell the YouTube social media era, and
Yeah.
even the subsequent Generation Irons, you can tell because like bodybuilding did kind of turn into more of like a social media type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
where you started seeing more of the social media people in the subsequent Generation Irons. I
Yeah.
think there was like 4 of them or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think it's either 3 or 4.
now, would you recommend these films to only body, like if someone just says like, oh, I go to the gym all the time and everything, I
Yeah.
lift some weights, like do you only recommend these films to those individuals, or like what would you say?
Generation Iron, yes. Like Generation Iron, I would only recommend to somebody that goes to the gym, even if like a novice, like we're novices. For Pumping Iron, I think that's just a overall film that anybody can enjoy, especially since Arnold's in it and Lou Ferrigno. Like if you know Arnold, you most likely know Lou.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Pumping Iron, I would recommend to anyone because it was just a good film. Generation Iron, it would have to be somebody that at least somewhat goes to the gym, has a general idea.
Yeah, it was even Patty was like my her dad watched Pumping Iron and was
Okay.
like liked Arnold and stuff, and stuff. It's stuff like that. If you like Arnold, I think there's
Yeah.
like no way, there's no understanding. I don't think there's anybody in the world that understands that Arnold is a movie actor but started off as a
As a
bodybuilder.
bodybuilder.
And
Yeah.
so I think they know that, and so it's like if you enjoy Arnold or just like love action, his movies and stuff, why not see where he lives his life, basically, like where
Hmm.
he started his life,
Bread and butter.
bread and butter. And then Generation Iron is like, yeah, if you want to see the world of bodybuilding at its extreme
Yeah.
and possibly unhealthy, I would say, I would definitely say like that's a it's a decent movie, or decent view into the world of bodybuilding at that moment. I think it's like a time capsule. It's like it's a little weird snapshot of like, here's what bodybuilding looks like right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I didn't think
it's
about that.
actively changing. Yeah, so it's like it's not bad, but you have to really enjoy and want to be watching something about bodybuilding to enjoy Generation Iron, or at least finish watching it, because it's kind of hard to watch if you're not intrigued by the world and stuff
Yeah.
and all that. Last thought is that Patty was like, I want to see one of these for the women,
Mm.
and I don't know if the other Generation Irons actually go into like because there is a Mr. Olympia woman and
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
and so, but I was like, I don't think they've ever made like a full-fledged one about just them,
I don't think they have a solo. They might be like intermixed within one of the newer ones, but I don't think they have like a solo for just women.
which is something that but that was like Patty's, like she was like, I saw a woman in the background, like someone's there and everything, someone's winning these things, and she was like, how come they don't have one for them and everything?
Yeah.
But I was
Oh,
like,
you can
that's a
watch
good point.
I think it's Killer Sally. It's a
Yeah,
Netflix
but that's a
docuseries.
bad story
Well,
about.
yeah, but they touch on bodybuilding as a whole. It's a sad story.
We want to see wholesome
There's some
bodybuilders.
wholesome stuff in there before things go down. Just only watch episode 1.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. Last thing. Are you going? I know you go to the gym. Are you gonna hit the weights and
Am I
everything
more
now?
motivated?
Yeah. Are you gonna eat broccoli
Um,
and chicken and white rice?
most boring meal. I don't know. I guess it gave me a little bit more motivation, but it's not gonna. If this was us in college, yes. But now it's like I'm still just gonna keep going how I've been going.
It's a fun hobby, no matter what. I think
Hmm.
anybody that like it enjoys weightlifting, it's a hobby that you can have and do it
It's good
safe
for
and
your
everything,
health.
and
Yeah.
it's good for your health no matter what. And so, and it's fun to kind of know what your body can do. But yeah, I think
Oh,
I'm
that's one
motivated.
thing I didn't touch on. The intro song for Pumping Iron was amazing.
And it was made and okay, yeah, that's a whole,
Yeah,
because
we
I
just
think
skipped
that,
over that. That was amazing.
and it was made specifically for Pumping Iron. It says written and composed
Oh,
by this person.
okay. That
and
makes sense now.
and and I like the intro better of Pumping Iron, where it's like it
Oh
shows like
yeah.
the evolution of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But
That gets you pumped up. I was like, oh, this is cool.
I think also the intro, and it sporadically comes in through the Pumping Iron movie too, where you
Mhm.
hear it a little bit, and it almost kind of like answers the questions of also why they do it. It's more so they want to build. We all want to be someone that people remember forever,
Yeah.
and these individuals are trying to build that statue while they're living,
Yeah.
basically. And so that's just like it's almost like, what history do I leave when I'm gone? And I think that's poignant with the intro music, and it was very good. I liked it too.
Hmm. I was smiling that whole intro. I was like, this is cool. I'm like, I am a fan of this right now.
But all right, Kai, you want to take us out?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Saturday Night Popcorn, Sunday Morning Hangover. I'm Kai.
And I'm Jason, and we'll be back next week with another one.